pop up? There we go. All right. I think we are synced and live. Welcome back, Alia. I'm so glad to have this third conversation
Thank you
with
so
you
much.
in this series, but this is number 4, I think, of our live streams. I think.
I think this is number 3.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
I thought we did a live stream before this series. We've just
oh,
had
okay.
so many good conversations. I'm like, which have been recorded and which have not? But yes,
Yeah.
this is number 3 in our love series. And today we're getting into the energetics of advanced relationships. So we have a lot of very juicy stuff to talk about today. But let's just start with some introductions. So please feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Alia, the love coach, and my passion is helping women fall in love with themselves unconditionally, find that one true love within them, and create a life that they absolutely love.
Mm. Yes. And I love that you help people fall in love with themselves. I was recording a podcast yesterday as a guest and with Theodora Pendragon, and I was describing my new coaching program, and she goes, "You help people fall in love with themselves." And I was like, I guess I do. But obviously, I, as Safrianna Lughna, the queer spirit guide, I tend to help people of all genders who are LGBTQIA, star seeds, polyamorous, some sort of, they've been ostracized or called weird or woo or wild or whatever in society. Um, and so I'm so glad to have you here. I love seeing, you know, how different people come to the same problem that
Yeah,
needs to be solved, in this case, of epidemic of lack of self-love.
yeah. With like what I have seen, we assume we love ourselves. Well, we've been trained to hate slash dislike slash judge ourselves. But then we
Mm-hmm.
grow up assuming we love ourselves. So we all need to learn to love ourselves more every single day.
We do.
So you
Absolutely.
go ahead, your introduction.
Oh, yeah, my introduction is just I'm Safrianna Lughna, the Queer Spirit Guide, and I help people also fall in love with themselves, but in probably a different way. And ultimately, I'm just so thrilled that we have this collaboration and that we can come together to give all sorts of people different perspectives on how to get into this inner work. So, in case you missed the prior 2 episodes, episode 1 was all about self love. We called it soul love. And then the episode 2 is conscious connections. So, really like being in deliberate relationship with one another and coming to that with full consciousness. And today we're going to get into advanced relationships. I remember when we named this, when we decided to do this, I was like, oh, this is going to be big. So, what do I mean by advanced relationship? I listed out a couple of things that this might describe. So, if you are married, but it's a non traditional marriage arrangement, right? So, maybe you're not living together. That actually is a thing that's increasing massively in the heterosexual community, is like husbands and wives not living together or having separate bedrooms and things like that. That's not traditional by societal standards. Polyamory, of course, ethical non monogamy, and asexuality. Those are really the big topics I want to cover today. And of course, if there's anything we don't answer today, we are doing one more call in 2 weeks. And we've already gotten a couple questions that I'm planning to answer during that episode, but let us know how we can be of more support. So, Alia, when I said, non traditional marriages, ethical non monogamy, asexuality, what immediately came up? Because these are like really big topics.
For me, what came up is the unethical aspect of it that creates so much trouble, so much drama, and the person who's on the receiving end of that unethical advanced relationship and they have not consent to it, and the kind of psychological damage it does to them, because that's what I work with.
Yes.
When you have been in a situation that you didn't sign up for, you had no idea, but the other person just assumed they can just run with it, and what it has done to your self image, your self worth, and how to repair and heal that. Um, that's what just popped up
Yes.
for me. That as a society, I feel like we need to become more open to talk about it, because there are people who would love to have that, and that is wonderful. That is wonderful. Can we just take out the judgment out of it? Can we just take the judgment out of it? But it gets very complicated when the person who maybe like, I have experienced, like, personally, and then with the work that I do, sometime people who are homosexual, they would get married just because they want to show the world that they are married. But then the person who's living with them, they're like, okay, this is not what I signed up for.
Right.
And my question is, why did we even put so much pressure on the person that they had to go and do something like that? Can we talk about that? Can we make it normal? Can we create some room for everyone to breathe? Because first of all, it's creating, like, these pockets of issues, and then we hush those too, so that's creating more pockets of issues.
Hmm.
But if we can just have an open conversation about, that's what you want, I love you, take it, I'm really happy for you. If we can have those open conversations, I feel like we can really clear up so much energy that
Hmm.
goes on in the relationships.
Yes.
So I just wanted to start there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like that's a great springboard. And I just switched microphones, by the way. So if sound just drastically changed, I apologize. Um, yes. Consent is key in everything. And consent is what's required in any relationship for it to be healthy, period. End of story. Right. So the fact that, yeah, our society has made it challenging, has made it near impossible to be a queer person out and not experience some kind of judgment or hate somewhere, right? Same thing with polyamorous people or the people that are trying to do non-monogamy ethically. Like there's no support for it. So those people are like hiding. And then the people that are like, well, I'm just going to try and stick the best with the system that I can, and they're making themselves miserable in the process, end up roping in other people to kind of keep up the lie with them,
Yeah,
that does have a really negative ripple effect. So
yeah,
yeah, like I would love to start with um I the concept you were describing was basically the whole beard thing, right? Like there were these relationships where people would a homosexual person would marry another, sometimes another homosexual person, so they could masquerade together as straight people because it's not safe, right? Not because they're not necessarily aware that they're queer, but because it's not been safe for them. But then I've worked with so many clients that have come out in their 50s, their 60s. I've worked with clients in their 60s who are just coming out as LGBTQ
yeah,
because society has been so oppressive to that population. But again, so this intersection between consent and societal judgment pelting at us. So how do we break free of out of that? How have you navigated that with your clients when they're sort of in
um
some sort of situation?
so I just help them um accept. And some people, they're just like, no, this person is gonna change one day, and I'm like, no, they're not gonna change. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them that will change. And that is the unfortunate piece that I really want to, like, say it on a loudspeaker. If someone is choosing to express their sexuality in a different way than I'm used to seeing, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And in my own personal life, I had to, like, uh, look at it and be like, Alia, there's nothing wrong with it. Just accept it. Just accept it and love the person just the way they are.
Mhm.
That was like, I had to, I think I used to be a very, like, black and white person. I became gray because I had to look at gray and then just see, like, I think world is gray. I think world is
Pretty
very
pretty
gray.
gray.
Yeah, it's very gray. And once I started looking at world as gray, my life became so much easier, and there's so much room to just be. So I think acceptance is the key. Accepting that you don't have to be like me. You don't have to believe everything I believe. Accepting that, like, between siblings, between, parent and child, between a life partner, maybe that life partner, their whole life, they've been hiding a part of them because they never felt they could be safe. So it's not on them, it's also on me.
Yeah.
That, I was so black and white that I didn't accept their gray, so they couldn't share their gray. Let's just say it was that way. So I think acceptance is the key. Really challenging what we think sexuality to be, or how it has really been dictated to us, and what it really is.
Yeah.
Like, really being curious, like, what sexuality is. One of the thing I'm learning nowadays is emotional intimacy, and intimacy with myself. There are moments where I am seeking, like, I just need somebody to give me this. Those are the moments where I sit with myself and I'm like, how can I give to myself?
Right.
To me, that's sexual energy. And that is me tapping into my own sexuality, and maybe feeling sensual with myself, and maybe, like, going into self play. It could go all the way there. It could be just me sitting on the living room floor, just being with myself, being
Right.
present with myself. So when we start to question what I think about sexuality, is it really true? I think that is where the journey starts. That is where
Right.
first I have to accept myself. And maybe there's more to me than I can even.
Well, and this is something, so many people who generally agree with the sort of societal first checkbox, right? Okay, I agree with the gender that I was assigned at birth. Okay, I agree with the mass heterosexuality as the norm. And then they just don't question it. They just sort of go with it. And what I've helped a lot of people understand is the spectrum. I love that you said, this gray area, and life is a lot of gray areas, because I teach gender. So there's sex, which is what's actually going on under the surface, which you actually have to like go get genetic testing done and a whole lot of stuff that most of us never do to actually determine what's biologically going on. Like there are a lot of people out there that think that they, have an XY or this or that, and they don't,
Yeah.
because biology is way more complicated than that. But
Yeah.
you have sex, and then you have your expression, your gender expression, which is just how you show up in the world. And that changes all the time, too. Like
Yeah.
we will, oh, I'm going through a hyper feminine phase of my life, and I want to do makeup every day and, do my hair and this and that. And then tomboy phase where we're like, screw it, I'm going to wear t-shirts and, baggy pants and no one can stop me. Like, so gender expression, all of us, for the most part, slide at least a little up and down on that spectrum. Then there's our identity, so how we identify in our gender. And that can play into roles and such too. But then we get into the real fun stuff, which is our sexual spectrum and our romantic spectrum. And sometimes they don't match. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about. I can't tell you how many women I have talked to that have been like, I could date a woman. I wouldn't want to have sex with her, but I could date her and have a romantic and I'm like, do you not see that there's the spectrum? And we can have, yes, we can have this emotional intimacy, and we can have physical sexual intimacy. And that goes into the asexual piece too. Like some people don't want sex, or they're just not interested in it for, one reason or another. And that's not actually wrong about them.
Yeah.
It's just how their preferences or how their reality is. And we have a society that has made sex compulsory.
Yeah.
Like if you're a healthy adult, you need to be having sex and this many times a week and blah, 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 right? All these messages.
And sometimes, like, you need to have it with someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, like all these again messages of like, this is the way to be. And in advanced relationships, we're really starting to say, okay, here's the playbook society wrote. I don't care about that. Like, we're tossing that playbook
Yeah.
out and we're determining what is, and I think I said this in the conscious connections, like designing the relationship together.
Yeah. And also giving yourself permission. I can have something different than what I was told to have. For example, I'll quickly share. So, the way it works in Islam, because I'm a practicing Muslim, as soon as you get divorced, it's highly recommended to get married as soon as possible because it's good to have companionship and all that. But then I don't live in a world where I cannot function without a man. So I've been single for 3 years, and I am planning to be single for a little bit more. I'm just loving being single. It's one of the
Perks.
best thing to do. But it's a very challenging for the people around me to see me single. I'm completely okay with it. I have allowed myself to room to be. And some days I'm like, if you want to be single for the rest of your life, go girl. I'm right here with you. I'm gonna love you through every single day.
Yes.
We are complete. Uh, but it does challenge other people a lot because me being this way is challenging them. So I think that is where when we get into advanced relationship, when we look at our family, people close to us who reject us to fulfill our own desire or whatever we want, because they're checking, okay, what you're doing does not match to what I'm doing, so
Hmm.
I cannot change, so you must change because you must be doing something wrong. I think overcoming that is what really gives us room to just be, even go for that advanced energetic of a relationship where I'll be like, my family doesn't need to accept me. And I think building that muscle is a lot of work. It is the work.
It is the work. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, as you were saying that, I was like click, 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 all these things in place. My late father, I had to write him out of my life at one point because he could not differentiate the difference in his framework, in his mind, between cheating and polyamory. Let me explain very succinctly the difference between cheating and polyamory. Cheating can happen in polyamory, and it is when you do something in a relationship that you didn't have consent in the relationship that it was okay to pursue, right? So you can be a monogamous person or a polyamorous person and start a side relationship romantically or sexually or both
Yeah.
without telling someone that you're already in a relationship about. That's cheating unless you have a very explicit agreement that says like don't ask, don't tell, go do your thing, just stay
Yeah.
safe, which I don't recommend just being willy-nilly about that because that's usually avoidance. But polyamory or ethical non-monogamy is with consent.
Yeah.
Right, everyone is informed and everyone is a part of some of the decision making process, right? It's not a I could get into vetoes and stuff, but that's a whole polyamory specific episode. But my dad could not see the difference. And so he would berate me and, I loved one of my favorite quotes from him was there's no such thing as bisexual, only trisexual because you'll try everything. And I'm like, that's an interesting perspective. Okay, glad to know how you see it. But yes, our family members can apply their rigid lens to what we're doing, and we can want to shrink and we can want to people please and we can want to mask or stop doing what makes us us. But just like this perfect example, right? In your faith tradition and in your family system,
Yeah.
they are used to this, like this is how we do things, this is how we approach marriage, and this is how we approach relationships. And you're saying that's not for me.
Yeah.
And I respect that it's for you, but it's not for me. And they kind of have this stickiness. And so for the people that are in the stickiness, right? I love what you've said, Alia. Like, just can you come to a place of acceptance that every single one of us is different and is going to have a different journey through
Yeah.
all of this?
Yeah. Sometimes now we are becoming more and more tolerant when it comes to like, okay, Maybe you want to live on a mountain. I want to live on the beach. But can we also bring that conversation to sexuality? That is, I think, which is very important. Like even um like talking about the unethical aspect of it. So one thing that goes on in Muslim religion, I will say every single Muslim country, this goes on. There is a concept that men can have multiple wives, but there is a whole um, legal system to go through it. There has to be a condition, there has to be this, there has to be that. The wife has to say, like, all that exists. But what happens, because they say a man is a man, there's a lot of unethical polygamy. There's a lot of that, and it gets forced on the woman.
Yeah.
And then everybody, like, that's why I do the work with the woman the way I do. Then everybody would like, write a check to the man, like, he's just a man, he can do whatever. But as a woman, it's your responsibility. But when a woman would go out and she'll try to have relationships because she's like, okay, why not me too, then she's looked down upon. And I feel like even when we are talking about sexuality, sometime, if polyamorous, like, I'm just going to take that example, if that is, let's say, looking like a man is doing it versus looking like a woman is doing it, if that receives different kind of attention from the loved ones.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there is so much depth here of just like societal
Yeah.
double standards
Yeah.
and religious double standards that still exist. And yeah, absolutely. I've worked with so many people who have ended up in a polyamorous situation. Like ended up in a polyamorous situation because they started dating someone, usually a man. I have yet to hear a woman do this. I just want to like push that out there. I'm sure they exist. I know they exist. But like I've worked with many clients who have started dating a man and then 3 weeks later he mentions his other girlfriend and they're like, "What?" Wait, what? And then they're just like, "Oh, well, and like, oh, he said he was polyamorous." And okay. Well, I know that's a real thing and I'm not going to judge it. No, he should have told you that on the first date.
That should be on your dating profile.
That needs to be publicized. Like, hello, I am in more than one relationship because again, cheating is literally like doing something without consent
Yeah.
in relationship. And so there's absolutely 1000% cheating in polyamorous situations. And so polygamy, ooh, polygamy is, pretty much a religious thing at this point. I don't know many people that are actually like, because there aren't, that's so interesting too, because there aren't legal avenues really for people who are polyamorous like myself to marry more than one partner. But in certain religions,
Yeah.
there are methods for a man to legally or through the church or through whatever, like
Yeah.
have more than one wife. Why is this?
Yeah. And for me, the most interesting thing is because I actually study Islam and I know that Islam does not have polygamy. It is a monogamous religion. But, let's say uh, it's also a lifestyle. Like every religion, like, shares a lifestyle. So it looks at all the different crazy scenario that could be. Maybe your first wife couldn't have kids, and then let's say she's old, and then she's like, where would I go? Because there was time where, like, a woman didn't know where she would go unless there's a man providing for her.
Right.
In that case, you, with her consent, you can remarry or marry another person. And it's all like, all possible situations. But what is happening is picking and choosing. I'm going to pick the part that I can marry more than one. I'm going to leave the part, what are the conditions under which I can do.
Yes.
So I think that does bring us back to the topic of cheating. Somebody could say, like, I am polyamorous, and I would eventually tell the person if it gets serious, but I don't have to tell it to them right now because I don't feel safe about my own identity.
Yeah.
That is right there cheating. But somehow the person has convinced themselves that, it's okay to do it. And I think that's where when we are running away from facing the truth about ourselves, I think that is where in advanced relationships things get very murky because at the root of it, I am not accepting me. If I accept myself, I'll be honest, I'll be upfront, I'll be able to tell my loved ones, hey, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I'm completely fine. I don't live in a world where if I am different from my clan, I would literally be thrown away and a tiger will eat me. That's not the world I live in.
Right.
Even if everybody leaves me alone, I can still work somewhere and sustain myself. So I think it's being very aware of what's going on within me psychologically to be an honest partner
Yeah.
to whoever it
To
will be.
whoever. Yes. And that's the self-ownership piece. Like we have to own why and where we're not able to show up fully as ourselves. Like that is ultimately on us. Like once we've reached adulthood, right? This is not true of kids who are dependent on their parents and part of a legal system that doesn't allow them to make their own choices, right? But once we're an adult, um and assuming that we live in a country where we're not going to be put to death or
Yeah.
imprisoned for making choices for ourselves, because those places do exist. I want to acknowledge that.
Or also a state.
Yeah. And that. Yeah. As long as you are in a place where there's not actual legal ramifications for being who you are, we're responsible for doing the trauma work. And the thing is that the more we as an individual do that, and the more we as individuals learn to love ourselves, the
Yeah.
more acceptance we start having for other people. And so communication starts to free up on a collective level. But when we're living in double standard world and we're just, no, I'm the special case.
Yeah.
And we can do that in a positive way, like something we're gaining, I'm the special case, or beating ourselves up and depleting ourselves, I'm the special case.
Yeah.
We do both.
Yeah.
We have to clear that.
Yeah. And sometime when we are in that situation, to anyone who's listening who might be like, okay, I am in this special situation. Sometime when we feel like I'm in a very unique position where I think cheating or lying is the only way, I cannot be honest, that's just an illusion. We all think like that. I might have thought about that at some point. Someone else might have thought about, we as collectively human go through that, but everyone goes through that. And there's always room for truth.
Hmm.
Truth about accepting who I am, truth about accepting who you are, truth about, everyone who's around us. Stepping into the truth does take courage, because one of the things I love about what I study once, courage is a faculty of the soul.
Mm.
When I want to step into courage, I need to go a little bit higher
Yes.
consciousness to pull in that courage and then just step into it. And there's no fear when there's courage, or I can walk through fear with courage.
I'm very intimately aware of fear. Like I'm pretty much afraid all of the time in everything I do. Every time I get on a live stream, I'm a little bit afraid. Every time I go to a new place, I'm a little bit afraid. Like I'm afraid most of the time, and I've learned to do the thing anyway. And that's something that any of us can learn to do, is to befriend those parts of us that are telling the stories that say, oh, it can't be this way. Right? Like when I think back to my father, I know it had nothing to do with me that he was judging me for being polyamorous, and it had everything to do with his experiences of being cheated on against his consent, against his will.
Yeah.
And he was projecting that out because he could not do the internal work to go, wow, I need to release the fact that
Yeah.
I've been cheated on. I need to release the fact that I've experienced these things and sort of alchemize and process through it. So without that ownership piece, there's
Yeah.
only so far we can go.
True. And no matter what relationship I think we are in, or what structure of our relationship, sexual, intimate, that we choose to step into, we all have to do that cleanup work before we get there. Even if it's like, monogamous or advanced relationship, polyamorous, wherever we are, we have to take the ownership to do that cleanup work, because a lot happens in our teenage years. A lot happens in our 20s. And then we walk into a serious relationship with that baggage and with those perceptions, as your father was projecting on you, and then we are just projecting. And that is where we create the secret side thing. I can actually be secretive, I can actually do this cheating stuff over here, but we are only hurting ourselves further.
Yeah, I've worked with many, many people who have cheated on their partners or been cheated on, and I don't judge people who cheat, because what I've come to understand and see is that they are responding from trauma, and they're responding from fear of being who they truly are. They're responding out of fear of saying what they need or what they desire. And while I do not judge, I still hold them accountable for their impact on themselves and on others, right? So
Yeah.
holding this dual reality, like, to be in healthy, advanced relationships, we must be able to communicate clearly. And that means being in a safe relationship. And if it's not a safe relationship, I say this having been a person who's left unsafe relationships, and it took many, many tries and a lot of courage. We are responsible to leave that relationship if we cannot show
Yeah.
up as ourselves in it.
Yeah. That
That's the
is
bottom
that
line.
is so true. It really comes down to, like, being honest. And I had the experience where I got cheated on, and I just didn't know how to leave. I just didn't know how to leave, and everyone around me was like, what's wrong with you? You have no self-respect. And I was like, what is that? What is that? I don't know what is that. I don't know how to leave. And that's why I do the work that I do. I had to learn what is self-respect, what is acceptance, how will I leave, what takes to leave. But one thing I wanted to do, it, intuitively I knew that whenever I leave, I want to leave with love.
Hmm.
So when I left with love, then again other people were like, how can you leave with love? That person hurted you. And just looking at it, because I had the same I got to the same place as you did, I started to understand why the person did what they did. And it was like, I love you. I love you from a distance. I love you as a human, but I am not going to be part of this journey that you're on. And it's on me to take myself out of it, but I'm not gonna hate you.
Hmm.
I'm going to, like, still respect you, love you. And I'm so grateful that you brought me to this experience where I had no choice but to look within me.
Yeah.
Like, that gift that you gave me, I would always respect you for
Mhm.
that. So when I share
Yes.
that piece with some people who maybe haven't had the similar experiences, or who only look at the act and they start to go into judgment, it does, like, it scrambles their brain. Alia, how can you feel so much gratitude for somebody? And I'm like, well, just zoom out. I just zoomed out and I looked at all the moving parts and how it was very important for me to have this experience.
Yeah. Contrast, right? Every experience teaches us either I don't want that or I do want that.
Yeah.
And both pieces of information are important, because the more we go, I don't want that, that's not for me, the more we can start to just, oh, that matches that set of parameters, not for me, I'm going this way. And when I was able to shift into that, it changed so much for me in life, in relationships, in myself. Like, oh, I don't enjoy this set of parameters in a relationship. Okay, so I'm never going to be in a relationship again where that is
Yeah.
how it goes. Simple enough, right? But we have to have sometimes the hardest lessons in order to
Yeah.
allow that to sink in.
They need to be a little louder for us to hear. And I feel like the biggest gift, a blessing that I got from that experience is acceptance and tolerance. And I needed to learn that. And that is what made my life so much easier. That's why now I can look beyond the labels, and I can look at the soul, and I can understand the soul has its own journey, which I'm not supposed to be meddling like into. I need to stay here and I can just witness the beautiful movement that's happening there. So the level of acceptance that came from there, I think, gives me the ability to help other people to get to that level of acceptance. And no matter
Absolutely.
where we are in our journey or what part of our life we are working on, I think once we introduce radical acceptance for self and others, it just takes some burden off of our shoulders. It feels like, I was carrying something, now I don't have to carry it anymore.
Yeah.
Life is so much lighter and happier. And no matter I'm talking to a stranger or I'm talking to my son, life has a different flavor to it when there is that acceptance where someone doesn't need to be certain way just so I can feel safe.
Mhm.
They can be whoever they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is what, if everyone can get to that level, we will not be afraid of each other. We will not be hating on each other. The conflicts will start to die down a bit. It's all about, like, because I have not accepted myself, I'm not going to accept you. You need to be this way for so I can feel safe. That is what creates so much stickiness in all levels in our
Mhm.
relationship.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I'm a person that I don't judge anyone's faith, their spiritual views. I think that everything leads back to the same thing
Yeah,
eventually, the golden thread concept. But there is so much in societies and cultures and religions that has said this is the one way to be. And I choose to see God, or whatever we want to call this, right,
yeah,
as an ultimately loving being who has given us so many different beautiful ways to be. And
yeah,
if we can accept it as that, and we can shine that God light, that unconditional love out in the world, yeah, we'd be in a very, very different situation instead of all the infighting we do. But yes, so much. There was something you said earlier, and I was like, yes, because most of us, if we are acting in hate, it's because we're judging ourselves ultimately.
yeah,
And so, can we get curious about ourselves and how to love ourselves better? Because that's going to allow us to be in relationship with all kinds of different people.
yeah. That is so true. And sometime, when we have not accepted who we were in our 20s, we're pretty bitter about other people who we are in our 50s. This all goes back to, like, did I accept myself from all my past version? If I have accepted myself fully, I can accept anyone fully. I'm not gonna judge them. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
try to, like, put labels on them or be afraid of them. You were talking about, like, how in religion there's like this set way. So I study all religions,
Hmm.
and right now I'm studying Kabbalah, which is Judaism mysticism. And I showed up to the class, and it was like I was the only Muslim, and especially I was the only one wearing this. And then I went to the Rosh Hashanah event, and I shared on my social media. So, and then I also work with energy healing, and some Muslims think that it's forbidden, it's magic. So I see how much challenging it is for some people to accept me. It's like, no, you are too much out of the box. And I am naturally a person, I don't do boxes. I just don't. I was born that way. That is what I came here to do. But it was interesting to see people who are not Muslim, especially once they saw, like, I went to the Rosh Hashanah event, they just wanted to label me. Are you a Jew now? Are you like, so in Islam itself there's like a mysticism branch. Are you like a Muslim mystic? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I just love to study everything.
Yeah.
I'm very honest about it, that I just love to study. But it's interesting how challenging it could be for other people. And now let's bring the same thing to our sexuality, same concept. If I'm a person who just love to explore and I'm curious and I'm all that, and then someone else would be like, oh, then you're this now. And I'll be like, no, I'm not. But it's very important for them to be able to label me because that's how they feel safe. But
Yeah.
when we all become curious, then we don't have to feel safety because what can I label? And the safety is within me. Safety does come from being curious and asking questions. And I think if we can do that, we won't be so hung up on a lot of the things that we get hung up on.
Yeah.
That curiosity for our own self, our sexuality, and when we do enter into advanced relationship, keeping the energy clean and clear.
Yeah. And so, that leads me into one thing that I wanted to make sure we touched on today, which is what do we do? An advanced relationship to me is when my need in a relationship does not match the need of the relationship and of the other person across from me. We have a disconnect somewhere, and they still need to meet that need, right? So whether that is sexual exploration, or they like to go whitewater rapiding, and like they like outdoor adventures and hiking, and my body can't do that, right? Like whatever it might be, we deserve to have the experiences that we want to have consensually, openly, lovingly, honestly, communicatively. And so, what do we do when we're in a relationship where, let's say, maybe we are asexual or we have a low sex drive, but our partner has a voracious appetite when it comes to sexuality? What do we do then? And most of society says, well, one of you just suffers and you compromise so that the other person either comes down or you go up.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel right. So, if we're in an advanced relationship, how do we communicate about that to not do this, but to allow each person to be this and create, the possibility of each person having their needs met in a variety of ways?
I feel like that's honesty. Like, first, we have to be honest, like, okay, that is the problem that we have going on. Now, some people might just choose to consciously uncouple.
Hmm.
Some people might look at, like, okay, what are the options we have? uh, let's say if they do go with the option of, okay, can we invite another partner into this picture? I think that would require everyone feeling so safe and secure within them,
Yes.
that just because there's another person doesn't mean I'm being replaced. We are all coming together to co-create. So
Hmm.
so at the end of the day, it's that inner security that is going to keep us on the same page, on a
Yes.
clear page where nothing is shady happening on the side.
Yes.
It's that inner security. And that just feels so good. Even if I'm saying it, it just feels so good
Yeah.
to feel that innately so secure that, hey, I'm not concerned like what you're doing. I'm
Yeah.
still here. I'm still here exactly the way I am, but I also accept you, whatever
Yes.
you need. And to be honest, I try to force that on myself. I'm
Sometimes we're
like,
like,
you know
speed
what?
up, let's go, let's install this so I can feel better right now.
I was like, oh, I can do this. I can tolerate. And then I was like, who are you kidding? No, you can't. So it's trial and error. Sometimes we want to be such a bigger person that we want to do that without learning more about ourselves.
Hmm.
Maybe I just want to be such a bigger person because I want validation. And I forgot to check in with myself and be honest here and nurture that inner security. So I think to me, that's inner security.
Yeah. And so inner security, the self work and consent and communication are really like the big keys to
Yeah.
being able to be in advanced relationships where we're outside of the traditions and norms. Who made those
Yeah.
up anyway? um right, like we can see a lot of historical evidence of all kinds of relationships
Yeah.
that exist, and I don't know why more recently we've been so militant about no, Like, you have to be this way. But yes, when we can come into that inner security, what I want to say there is that there can still be jealousy, there can still be fear, there can still be disappointment, there can still be shame. All of those emotions can still exist, even if we have entered a state where we are capable of self-love and self-acceptance. The key is how we then treat those parts of ourselves, right? Jealousy, for example, is merely an invitation for us to ask, do I actually also want that thing? I always use the example of going to a concert, right? Because everyone can understand this, whether you're polyamorous or not. Um, I go to a concert with my friend or this other person, and you go, wow, I wish I had gone to that concert. That looked like a lot of fun, and I would have liked to be a part of that. Jealousy, when we're acting completely out of whack, we're like, well, you're not allowed to go to the concert anymore, ever, unless you're taking me. And that's not okay. But instead, it's like, oh, I'm feeling this jealousy because there's something I want here. Do I also actually want to go to the concert? I do. Hey, can we go to a concert together? Right? And then it becomes, can we co-create instead of like control and I have to make this happen. So jealousy, when we can be in a different relationship with it, is simply the part of us that says, hey, maybe I want that too.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Oh, maybe I want that too. But then if we can ask that question, do I actually want that? Or is this just fear controlling me and like making me think I have to do this or I have to want this? I'm just using the concert example. I would not actually want to go to the concert because I hate big crowds and I love live music, but I am only going to want to sit in the seat where I can be cozy, not the kind of concert where I'm in a mosh pit, right? So like when we use these deeper questions and get curious, what is it about this that is bringing this up for me? Do I actually want that thing too? And that might be sexuality, right? If you're a person with a low sex drive, do I actually want to have more sex? Or am I just having this experience where I feel shame because I don't want as much sex as my partner? And so to control my shame, I'm going to try and limit them.
Yeah. To me, the example that's coming to my mind, do I want the last cookie because I'm hungry, or do I want it so no one else can have it?
So
Oh, I have a
true.
young kid. Sometimes we do go for the last cookie, and it's like, who's gonna get it?
I love
Well,
that.
what you just shared here is all about being self-aware. What's going on within me? Sometime when we are in an advanced relationship, it's very easy to be so out here because there could be a lot of moving parts, a lot of communication going on. Just taking a moment and coming in here and checking in. Is that what I want? Am I 100% sure I want that?
Yeah,
Then that can resolve, like, very biggie, sticky situations.
absolutely. Oh my gosh. So many things that we could share about relationships and how to navigate them. My main takeaway that I want people to have from this conversation is kind of the same as last time. Like, everyone is worthy of designing relationships that work for them, of sharing what they authentically want. There's really like having a lot of experience in the kink scene. There are things I would never do, but you do you, boo. And if you enjoy that and you can find a consenting person to do that with you, right? As long as it's not coercive consent, go for it. We're not all going to want to consent to all kinds of experiences. And that's where boundaries get to come in. And we get to say, like, that is not for me. But be willing to look at what society has scripted for you as like, this is the only way to be versus what you actually want, and get curious about, what is your soul expression. I've worked with people who have literally said, like, I really want my own bedroom. I'm so tired of my spouse snoring, or they kick and they toss and turn at night, or this or that. Like, I am so grateful that I was willing to start questioning that too, because now I live with I don't live with my spouse anymore, but I live with another partner and we have separate bedrooms. And it is so nice because sometimes we sleep together, but on the nights where I'm like, oh man, I just need silence, like utter silence and a bed that does not move,
Yeah.
I can just say, hey, I want to sleep alone tonight. And like, that's okay. Versus so many of us in relationships, that's like a big deal and it can be an explosion but no, we're supposed to do it this way.
Yeah. I mean, most
Says
likely that's the route I'm gonna go in my future marriage as well. I'm just getting more used to taking the whole bed to me. And I'm a very light sleeper. Someone
me
touches
too.
me like this, I wake up and then
Yep.
I'm just sitting there. I remember there would be nights I'll wake up at 2 a.m. and I'm like, okay, I'll just meditate. I'll meditate for an hour and then I'll do something else. And now I know, oh, the problem was I was sleeping with someone else.
Yep. Yep. Though, and that's where I'm very grateful that if that happens, I can look over at my partner and go, all right, it's time for you to go to your own room. He just gets up, takes his pillow, drags it through the house, and I'm like, oh, bed to myself. But these are the things, like, some people hear that and they're like, that's not a real relationship. Says who?
Yeah.
Why are we required to do things in a certain set of ways for it to be a relationship? So that's, my biggest takeaway today is like, it's okay to want to do things in your own unique way as long as you can communicate and have consent and teamwork, right? We're not on if we're on different sides and we're fighting each other, that's not teamwork.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference between true communication and like coercive consent.
True. And for me it's accepting all parts of me.
Mhm.
That is where the honesty comes. Because if I'm not ashamed of any part of me, then I'm not ashamed of sharing it. And if I can share all of me, then there's no room to hide anything. So actively working on accepting all different parts of me every single day, I think to me that really creates a wonderful relationship, whether it's just a plain old relationship or if it's advanced, if it's something I have consciously created, or if it's something I got out of a box, no matter where it comes from. It all because at the end of the day, I am the center of that, whatever I'm creating.
Mhm.
If I am clear inside out, we get to enjoy that clarity outside of us, and that's contagious. It's unique. It's
Yes.
beautiful.
Mm.
And the more people practice that, I think that's how we create a different kind of ripple effect where we do introduce honesty
Yes.
in any kind of relationship.
Yeah. Again, the most important thing we can do on this planet is work on our own internal healing because that does have an impact. So, thank you so much for this conversation today. We
Thank you.
have Yes, we have one more episode that's open Q&A. So we have some community questions that have already come in that we will be answering. I know we're going to talk about compersion. We got a question about like conscious uncoupling. How do you leave a relationship when you know it's done for and you want to leave as safely and calmly as you possibly can with love, like you were able to in your relationship? So I know we're going to talk about that. But if you have watched any part of this series and you have questions, please let us know so that we can answer that in the final part of the series in 2 weeks. So thank you so much, as
Thank you so
always.
much. Thank you. I have been really enjoying these conversations.
Me too. I think there's such important conversations to have, and I hope that people are really benefiting from it. So, all right, friends, until next time, let us know, #replay, if you caught this after the fact. And otherwise, we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.